Brandon Swanson was from Marshall, Minnesota, and was born on January the 30th, 1989, and vanished in unusual circumstances on May the 14th, 2008. At the time of his disappearance, he was celebrating with fellow students from Minnesota West Community and Technical College in Canby, Minnesota, where he was studying wind turbines. Brandon's friends later reported that although they saw him drinking, he didn't appear to be drunk in any way. Brandon left the college to drive home shortly after midnight and took the same route home from school every day via Minnesota State Highway 68, which was the most direct route to his home in Marshall. But for some strange reason, decided to take an alternative route through rural farming roads. And one theory was that he didn't want to risk being picked up by police, fearing he may be over the limit. At around 1:54 a.m, he called his parents on his cell phone and told them that his car was stuck and was unsure of his location, but believed he was near Lind, which was a distance of approximately 32 miles from his college. His parents, Annette and Brian Swanson, then got in their pickup truck and drove out to where they believed he was, keeping him on the phone despite occasional hang-ups and dropouts. As they got closer to where Brandon claimed he was, they proceeded to flash their headlights to signify their presence. Staying with his car, Brandon also tried to signal them by flashing his headlights, but they did not see his headlights and he could not see their headlights either. Brandon then became frustrated, saying, "Don't you see me?" and at one time he switched off his phone. His mother called him back and Brandon told his parents that he decided to walk to his friend's house in Lind. His parents then drove towards Lind and continued to talk to their son on the phone. Brandon continued to walk and told his parents they would meet them in the parking lot of a popular nightclub in Lind. While still talking to his parents, Brandon decided to walk towards some lights that he believed was the town of Lind and traversed fields and fences hoping he could get there quicker. As the phone call reached the 47-minute mark, Swanson's father heard their son suddenly exclaim, "Oh shit," before his parents cut out, and Brandon Swanson was never seen or heard from again, making it the last word anyone heard from him. His parents continued to call his phone, but it went straight to voicemail, and for the rest of the night, his parents, with the help of their son's friends, searched the rural areas, endless gravel roads and farmland. At 6:30 a.m. the following morning, Brandon's mother called the Lind police to report him missing. The police told her that Brandon was a teenage college student and was not unusual for a young adult to be out all night after college celebrations. But when Brandon failed to turn up, police became concerned and proceeded to search for him. However, later that day his disappearance became more mysterious when his cell phone records showed that it had actually been near the town of Porter, which was 25 miles from where he said he was, and was actually in a different direction altogether, which was 8 miles from Canby. There appears no doubt that Brandon was unaware of his actual location. Fortunately, his phone was still switched on, so the police were able to trace the location of his last call to the nearest cell tower, which was in Porter. Porter is approximately 20 miles away from where Brandon believed he was. The police then concentrated their efforts around Porter, where they eventually discovered his abandoned green Chevy Lumina in a ditch near a gravel road off Lyon Lincoln Road between Porter and Taunton, a mile north of Highway 68. They found it stuck on the top of an incline at the edge of the road, but it was not damaged, and they found nothing wrong with the car. Due to the grass and gravel in the area surrounding it, there were no tracks and no way to tell what direction Brandon might have started walking. After closely inspecting the car, they found no evidence of foul play. The officers then requested the assistance of the Office of that County Sheriff, Jack Vizecki, as well as the Office of Leon County Sheriff, Joe Dahl. The police then extended their search and brought in dogs, air surveillance, along with hundreds of volunteers. The police dogs led the officers 3 miles away from where his car was found to an area called Yellow Medicine River. It was a fast-flowing river, but the police found no personal items or clothing in or around the river, which was a 2-mile stretch which took them about 6 hours to walk. Foul play had not been ruled out, but it has also been proposed that he might have accidentally fallen into the Yellow Medicine River near where his car was recovered. However, if Swanson had fallen into the river and managed to climb back out onto dry land, he may have succumbed to hypothermia, but a cadaver dog would have picked up his scent. Officer Dahl noted that from the area, a red light atop a Taunton grain elevator could be seen, and thought that it was possible that the red light Brandon had seen had led him to believe Lind was within walking distance. After 3 weeks, the searchers, along with cadaver dogs, found absolutely nothing. Brandon Swanson had vanished into the farmlands of Minnesota. Sheriff Vizecki continued to walk the 2 miles of the Yellow Medicine River in that area every day for 30 days. A few months later, in 2008, emergency support services based in Minneapolis decided to focus their search in a 140 square mile area, but some of the farmers refused to allow the searchers and their dogs onto their land, as it would have interfered with their harvest season. This would have left a significant setback in the area for Brandon Swanson. Search teams also had to contend with the swirling southwest Minnesota winds, which had further complicated their efforts. Search managers have called the area where Brandon went missing the toughest terrain there is, with the exception of Canada. Because of the lack of interest that the police had initially shown when they first reported him missing, his parents lobbied the state legislature to pass Brandon's law, which requires that police began investigations of missing adults promptly. Police were no longer allowed to refuse a report based on initial belief that no criminal activity was involved. The brevity of the interval since the person was last seen, and the possibility that the person may have intentionally disappeared, or the lack of a relationship between the missing person and the reporter. Following the governor's signature, the law took effect at the beginning of July 2009. So, what actually happened to Brandon Swanson? His father recalls that even though his son had consumed alcohol earlier in the evening, he did not seem disoriented or confused during their phone conversations. His parents said that during the last phone call with him, Brandon had sounded coherent and did not seem to be impaired. Before his disappearance, Brandon Swanson had no history of mental illness and was generally healthy and had no known pre-existing conditions. It seems unlikely that he would have staged his own disappearance, as he'd been trying to meet up with his parents that night. Other theories suggested that Brandon had experienced a mental breakdown. Now more than 14 years after his disappearance, police have still been unable to locate him, his remains, or his cell phone and car keys, and his parents are still searching for answers. Brandon's mother said that, people don't vanish into thin air. In the fall of 2021, the Yellow Medicine River dried up as a result of a drought, and law enforcement carried out an excavation, but found nothing, but have continued with field trips to stop Brandon Swanson's case from going cold. To date, no physical evidence related to his disappearance has ever been recovered, including his cell phone, car keys, or clothing, and all his parents have left are that last chilling phone call. To this day, the Swansons continue to leave their porch light on all night, every night, as a symbol of their hope that Brandon would eventually return or be found.